Welcome. It's art, it's music, it's life, it's fashion, it's listening, it's learning, it's listening for the subtleties in life, it's sharing. It's determining and discerning fact from fiction, from illusion, from fantasy. It's art inspired by life. It's life inspired by art. We're living at a time like no other on planet Earth. Spiritual, physical, metaphysical, insights, wisdom, challenges. We're more connected by technology and less connected to each other. We're all seeking answers, and we're often too busy to listen for the truth. Her story and his story and our story, exploring higher visions. Authors and publishers and creatives, all bringing us their empowerment tools, their insights. And I'm mining for those gems of wisdom. We share the fiery energy of transformation, healing, inspiration, and lots of revelations. I am Catherine Whalen Costin, an author, an artist, a storyteller, a podcast producer and host. I'm a fellow human sharing this journey of life with you on the planet at this time. Let's chat. Let's explore.
You know what? It's funny how our lives end up. It's so unpredictable. You have to expect the unexpected.
Absolutely.
And then you go with it. And if a door is opened, you walk. I say this to my own children. I say, you walk through the open doors.
Absolutely.
If a door is opened, you walk through it. Like, don't go, I don't know. Yeah. It's like, the door is open.
It's open wide. And it's actually only open for you. That's the thing. You don't even realize, you think, oh, that door is open for everybody. It's not. It's you, and it's right at that time, And I'm back with another chat. CWC Art and Soul. I'm Catherine Whalen Costin, host and producer. It is my absolute pleasure to be bringing this guest to you today, Katie Isbester. She has a PhD. She is taught at the University of Toronto for 7 years. She's an editor. She owns her own publishing company, Claret Press, and she is a unique woman in so many ways, and so warm and inviting and sharing and open with us about her journey from growing up in Canada to living in the UK and what the journey was all about. And I mean, we touched on so many different parts. So there's a lot in here about writing and writers and the purpose and why we need these communications, and can women really have it all? What we think about that, you'll have to watch to find out. So let's get into this chat today with Katie Isbester right now. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me today, Katie. This has been a interview in the making for several years, as we've been friends on social media and had some fun interactions, but never really connected in this way. And I love this face-to-face and to be able to share with my followers. So welcome, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. And it's one of the unexpected gifts of technology that suddenly across the divide, you make friends and you think, oh, I like this woman. I don't know who she is. I don't know what she does, but I like her.
Isn't that true?
And then they say, let's Zoom. And I think, let's Zoom. So it's just the gift that, it's the sweet and the sour of technology, because there is a downside. We can't be naive to that. But
yeah, that's the truth. But yeah, we have to focus on the good and be aware of, the pitfalls, which is, this wouldn't be possible, where in person is so much preferable, but it wouldn't even be possible for us because you're in the UK and I'm in Canada. And so, but you weren't always in the UK. So this is where, if people want to read your bio on my guest podcast page, it's short and sweet, and it certainly doesn't encompass all that you've accomplished. I mean, you have a PhD. I mean, jeepers, that's no small feat. And all kinds of academic experience and learning, but also as a teacher for 7 years in Toronto and University of Toronto, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And
It was a great one, and I loved it. I just loved it. Yeah. So
so,
that was.
so were you born in Canada?
I was raised in Hamilton, Ontario. The kind of, the hammer, the steel city. But actually, my family comes from the eastern townships in Quebec. A kind of a mixture of English and French Canadian, English Canadian, and they were very progressive, and I thought it was all a bit of a nonsense. And so the best local school was the Jewish school, so I went to a Jewish primary and nursery.
How wonderful! How expansive!
Yeah, and my grandparents are both my grandmothers are very religious, as that generation was.
Yeah.
And so I was baptized into both the Roman Catholic religion and the Anglican. And of course, my parents were very progressive. It's like that we don't do religion. And then during the FLQ crisis, my father was English speaking, was apprehensive and concerned about the viability of his job. So we left and went to Hamilton, and really for me, Hamilton is home. It's kind of where I grew up, downtown Hamilton, Ontario. And people pity me for it. It's like, you poor old thing, you come from Hamilton. But actually, it's a great place to grow up. I love the Hammer. People are friendly. They're really nice. The streets are full of old Victorian houses. I ran around them, kind of unsupervised. Everybody looked out for everybody else. It was just a really nice place to grow up. I actually feel quite lucky to grow up in Hamilton.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's where, a lot of times our most important memories get formed, like where we felt home, where we felt that connection with people. And I think that's beautiful.
That people do not get about Hamilton is that you can walk to the Bruce Trail and the ravine system and get down into Coote's Paradise and all the woods out there. And you can go into the Royal Botanical Gardens through the back door because it's not fenced off. So if you want to have a kind of, here's the dichotomy. You've got the steel mills in this very working class city, and it backs onto this fantastic, genuine wildlife that goes at the end of Lake Ontario. I know you're coming from Calgary, but at the end of Lake Ontario is kind of a marshland that's a wilderness with the Botanic Gardens, and it's got the McMaster University Gardens, and you just walk into it, and it's mile upon mile of trails and green space.
I'm not from Calgary originally. I was born in Manitoba, actually, and then I grew up for a period in northern Ontario, Kirkland Lake, and then Timmins for just outside of Timmins, actually, a little place called South Porcupine. So.
Oh my God, can you hear how, if you put this in a book, Catherine, I grew up bush and then moved to South Porcupine, an editor would strike that out as being fake. They go, I'm sorry, nobody would believe that. Like, we got to change, to South Porcupine to Smith Falls. Do you know what I mean? It would never get past an editor. It's like, I'm obviously speaking as someone who spent your life editing. Yeah. And you hear this and you think, ooh, that would never work.
And that's the thing about writing that to me is it's that juiciness of those words. It's so you grew up in Hamilton and went to a university in Ontario, I take it.
No, I actually went to Concordia in Montreal. I actually kind of wanted to kind of go back and see it, and I felt a little bit. Hamilton's quite working class, and I was a bit of a bookworm, and I missed so much school that they didn't want to give me a high school graduation.
Oh,
and I wasn't allowed to graduate because I had passed the number of days I was allowed to miss school, and I'd spent all my time in the Hamilton Library, the Hamilton Public Library, which is a fantastic public library.
Oh dear!
Just literally reading it out. Like I was, and I can remember my mother saying to me, like, where have you been all these weeks? And I said, Hamilton Public Library. And she said, yeah, of course you work. I'm like, oh, this daughter of hers, she used to pay me to go to parties. It's like, please go out on a Friday night. I'll give you $5 if you go out. And it's like, I don't think so. So I kind of wanted to, and now I look back in Hamilton and think, what a great place to grow up. But I have to tell, as a teenager, I could not wait to leave it. I was pretty convinced that the grass is greener on the other side of the fence.
Well, and Montreal had a certain flavor for everything.
Montreal.
You know, it's so multicultural, multilingual, fashion, the works, you know, culture.
Exactly. And I just thought, I don't belong in Hamilton. I belong in someplace. I belong someplace.
Rather dramatic teenager, yes. I love it.
Yeah. So I went to Concordia, and then I went to U of T, and then after I finished my PhD, they kept me on for a few years, and that was I really enjoyed that. And in and around there, I met my husband, and it became complicated. It just became like, you know, there's something that Gloria Steinem once said, like, no one ever said to a man, how are you going to juggle being married, having a career, and having children?
Oh, I know.
You know, yeah, but I tell you, it ripped me apart. It absolutely ripped. So something had to give. I'm giving you a very much we can go into more detail if you wish. I'm very happy to talk about it, because I think that we pretend that women can have it all. And I have to say, I couldn't. Maybe other women can. I couldn't figure it out.
Well, I heard once said, and I'm not sure who said it, but it was, yeah, we can have it all, just not all at once. And I'm thinking that I'm not sure that even is true, even, you know, because it's like I had my children when I was quite young. You know, I was married when I was 20 and divorced by the time I was 25 and had 2 children, you know, under the age of 3. So, and then balancing career in being a single mom, or even, you know, when I got married in the 80s, it was still very much, you can work, like somebody will give you permission, but you also have to do all of the other, your wifely duties, so to speak, and, you know, take care of the kids and manage the family and blah, 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 blah. And so we've come a long way, baby, but we're sure as heck not very far down the road as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I appreciate your experience in that you really recognized you couldn't have it all. You had to choose. I had to choose. And you know, right or wrong, better or worse, I chose to follow my husband. And this is going to, I get how this sounds like I'm some kind of arch traditional conservative housewife. In fact, hilariously, I have published on feminism and women's rights. That's the kind of the backbone of my career, is writing about women's empowerment and the women's movements, and different understandings of how we can organize so that women can get rights. But there's also something that's kind of been, I always feel kind of left out of this discussion, is that I also genuinely wanted to spend more time with my kids. And that could be partially because I think I was quite old. I was about 15 years older than you were when I had my children. And it came to me like a gift out of the, like, bang, that's out of the blue. I got accidentally pregnant. Wonder how that happened.
And, you know, we were both too old to be making that kind of mistake. You know, it was just kind of like, really? And hilariously, I didn't know I was pregnant because, you know, here I am, I'm almost 40, and I've got all the classic pregnancy symptoms. You know, I'm throwing up and I'm exhausted, and I'm phoning the doctor. He's like, well, you're very stressed, you know, I'll give you some Zantac. And I was like, yeah, Zantac is good. And I'm having unprotected sex. Never occurs to me I might get pregnant. Yeah. It's like, yeah. And I've got a PhD at this point, working in women's health and women's empowerment. Like, you gotta laugh.
Yeah, well, you know, there's something about divine timing, though. There's something about you know, that whole concept that we bet the best plans out there,
Yeah.
and then God laughs. You know, that's the joke. It's like, yeah, plan away, but I got a plan too, and you know, it's wonderful when you can have that kind of situation and then realize it as a gift. Like, wow, you know, I mean, I felt the same way. This my second pregnancy. It was, I was just there. My children are barely 11 months apart. I was still nursing the first one, which technically you're not supposed to be able to get pregnant with it, you know, and on top of it, yeah, yeah, so, you know, and I am so grateful that I did get pregnant. But I remember that phoning the doctor because, you know, I've got this 1 month old or just over a month old baby, and I am feeling sick. Like I don't feel good. I mean, I phone the doctor, and, you know, I go in, I forget, it was my 6 week checkup, I guess it was. And they did, you know, urine and whatever. And I said, I must have the flu because this is not going away. This is not good. And she goes, I'm sorry. Are you sitting down? Because it was such a gift because they were so close and it was perfect timing. And it really, in a way, if I hadn't probably, you know, I was divorced after that. So I think of it as, yeah, it worked out perfectly. But
Yeah.
anyway,
And I think there's something about having your children close together and you totally get in like the zone. It's like everything is, you know, bedtime, baths and bedtimes and nappies and, you know, diapers and, you know, and then, it's, you know, and you're in that kind of that's what you're doing intensively.
yeah,
And it feels okay. You
yeah.
know, it's kind of okay. Let's do this intensive. And I think, again, this was maybe an advantage of being a geriatric when I gave birth, was that, you know, it kind of thought this too shall come to pass. I've
It's
done
true.
other things and they've come and they've gone. And it's okay if this is not how you thought your life is going to go, because in 5 years, it's all going to be gone.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, and all of those sleepless nights, like I think I never had a full night's sleep until, you know, my kids were, after they were actually after they left home, because the teenagers, you don't sleep either. So don't kid yourself, right? You know, it's your life.
Yeah.
They become your life. And so, which is a wonderful gift to be able to share experiences. That when, for you, did you actually say, I'm going to set aside my career now and dedicate it to, or were you able to some extent still have a career, or did you give up teaching and everything at that point when the children were?
I think I was foolish, naive, unaware, ignorant. Maybe I've been misled a bit. I rather thought with my track record that I could walk into a job somewhere along in here in England, and found it was not feasible. And I'm not necessarily blaming the English here. You know, they have their system, we have our system. They have a way of operating. Canada's, the intellectual community in Canada is very integrated into the American, because we're so small and they're so large. And we're spread out so far in Canada, and we go north south, the intellectual community, and here it's much more integrated. So it's kind of like it suddenly becomes much more important. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And I found that very difficult. When you have children, you can't go hang out in the pub. Like, you just can't.
No.
Like, even if you want to, you just can't hang out in the pub.
No.
And that was never my strong point anyways. I'm not a social butterfly. I'm a bit of an egghead. So it played to my weaknesses being here. And so I did eventually walk away from it and say, you know, this boat is now left. My research was getting dated. I had a book out, I think, in 2012. And I thought, I could use as a springboard. But in another way, Catherine, getting that book out, which was called On the Paradox of Democracy, is about how doing a meta-analysis of democratic structures and procedures. It almost scratched an itch, and I was done. Do you know what I mean? Like it was like, I think I was pushing and pushing because there was this unfulfilled need inside me to engage intellectually and to demonstrate I could do it, and to for my own personal,
to prove to yourself and to satisfy your own curiosity. And I understand.
And the book got well reviewed, and it went on all sorts of teaching courses across universities across the United States. I was asked to do follow-up essays, peer-reviewed essays in journals, review essays. And I thought, no, I'm done now. I'm done. And it felt really good. It felt like a weight went off my shoulders.
Yeah.
And I thought, thank goodness I did something as madcap as trying to write a book on the fold-out card table in the corner of the living room as I had 3 children in 4 years, because I was so old. I had to kind of, I just did not have time to pause here. Like the clock was ticking.
Yeah.
And I did this when the kids were quite little, and and I didn't have an academic position. I did it anyways. I got published by an academic press, and kind of went. And I just thought, okay, you can do it, Katie. What's stopping you is everything else. And you know what? That's okay, because I've moved on now.
Yeah.
And there's a sense of kind of this, in a very healthy, organic, natural way, this door has closed and a new one's going to open. I didn't know what it was going to be, but a new one's going to open.
I love that, and that sense of knowing for yourself, because I do think that oftentimes women will do things almost like the messages we get, you're doing it for all women. I have to prove this so that I can say I'm a woman and all women, any woman can do this. So I have to do this. Instead of, I don't see that much of that with men. I don't see men going out trying to prove for the sake of all men, or everything they do being measured. He's the first man to have cooked an omelet in a frying pan by himself. We don't hear the big accolades on that, right? Or changed a diaper. He's the first man to change a diaper while simultaneously vacuuming. We don't give the, and we always think of that as, women's work, or met in the boardroom while simultaneously having their period and hiding the fact that it was all over the back of his pants. We don't have those kinds of things, right? For men, but we do for women. And so it's super important to know, am I doing this for me? Because in the end, you come into this earth alone and you're leaving on your own, and you're not going to actually be representing all of your gender or all of whatever. Yeah. So where's your satisfaction? And I think it's really beautiful that you actually knew you were done. You're, nothing to prove here. I'm done in this arena, and I'm moving to something else. But I missed something. How did you get to England? What was was your husband? That was his career?
It's complicated.
Okay. All right. So we'll leave
I'm a Dutchman. So he comes from the Netherlands, and he was going through Canada on business. And I met him at a party and thought, and he was invited up to a cottage, and I was invited up to a cottage in North, how Northern Ontario is full of colleges. Yes. And we're all up there. And it happened to be the weekend I had handed in my doctoral dissertation. And I had bought for myself Calvin and Hobbes. Do you know, it's like a comic?
Yes.
Because I just thought, after reading all this academia, I've always loved Calvin and Hobbes. Oh, yeah. I just think Calvin is like my spirit animal, Calvin and Hobbes. And so I bought that for myself. And he was reading something else that's very funny, called Pecked to Death by Ducks. And a middle-aged man who does all these adventures, and they all go horribly wrong. And they were magazine articles in Outside Magazine, which is a men's kind of outdoors adventure, skydiving, deep water fishing kind of things. And they send this middle-aged staff reporter to go do these things. And he's always falling off boats and things like that. And they're very funny. It's the comic relief. So he was reading Pecked to Death by Ducks, and I was reading Calvin and Hobbes, and we swapped. And we started reading each other's books to each other and laughing.
Oh my gosh, how wonderful.
And then he, how to put this delicately, so for your tender audience, we enjoyed each other's company rather enthusiastically. And he decided not to go back to Europe immediately and instead stay and spend a little bit more time with me. And after 39 days together, and we've got a single bed, right? And I'm in graduate students' college. Like we're surrounded by other graduate students, and neither of us are sleeping particularly well. No. Yeah. And after 39 days together, he said, we just have to stop doing this with each other. We just have, and I thought, you're absolutely right. This is crazy. I need a decent night's sleep, if nothing else. And he said, we have to get married. He said, either we get married or we break up, because this just can't continue. And I said,
works for me.
Let's get married. And
that's priceless.
Yeah. So he was a cameraman director. So he made adventure outdoor documentaries.
Oh, nice.
For BBC and other kind of, the Nature Channel. And he had a commission to film a British actor who was climbing Mount Everest. And so he left for Mount Everest. I said, I'll organize the wedding. In fact, bless her heart, my mother did. That sweet woman went out and I said, I can't do this. I'm busy. I said, look, I just want to get married, and we'll sit on the back deck at my mom's place in Hamilton, and we'll have pizza and beer. I'm cool with that. Like, honestly, I'm not doing this whole wedding nonsense. And she said, darling, what if I do it for you? And I thought, ooh,
that works.
And so he went and climbed Mount Everest, and it was the year of the killer storm, which was 1995. Let's see, my son was born in 96. No, 96. It was the winter of 96, because my son was born in the autumn of 96. And I can remember coming into my student dorm, and in those days, remember how phones had tape recording machines that you would press the play button? And it was my mother-in-law to be saying in her lovely accented English, now, Katie, you mustn't worry. I have talked to the Dutch ambassador, and he says they're doing everything they can. And I've talked to you, Kate, my husband's name is Kees, which is a very common Dutch name. Kees, talked to Kees's sister, and she said to tell you that nothing can kill Kees. So don't worry. And I thought, uh-oh.
Now I'm going to worry.
And there was this killer storm in Mount Everest, and everybody was dying on it. Yeah. And my first thought was, because I just discovered I was pregnant, I thought, what a shame. He'll never know that he's going to have a child. What a terrible, terrible shame that he won't know this. And he survived, and he came back, and we got married and had 2 more children after that. So we had three kids in total. But after a couple of years of trying, I was at University of Toronto, lecturing and teaching and being a junior professor, bottom rung of the ladder. And between the kids and having a husband who was frequently abroad working, and I just couldn't figure it out. And it was so unclear to me about what was the right thing to do. Like, it was not obvious at all. Yeah. And eventually I just thought, the reality is, Katie, you are not doing a good job of anything. You've been given this gift of, at that point I was pregnant with my second, and you are not getting the publications out because you can't stay awake, and you're sick all the time looking after a baby, and your kid is with a revolving door of students, who kind of show up hungover, and it's like,
jeepers, yeah, that would be hard.
Single parenting it because your husband's always overseas. Something's got to give. And so that's when I quit U of T. And we decided to settle in London, England, in central London, which is where he's getting a lot of his work from anyway. And,
wow.
and then
That's incredible. You were already in England. You decided to give up the academic and focus on your children, and things weren't working out in England anyway. But you had already been you were an editor for 20 years. Was that in England?
yes, and also in Canada.
Okay.
It started off as I wouldn't even say a side hustle. It turned out I had this. It sounds immodest. I don't want you know how most academics are like really, 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 really smart, but they can't spit it out. And when they do, you think, what did he just say? Just like, and you have no idea what, and you think, okay, let me just take this apart. So the first 5 words say this, and the second 5 words, yeah. It turns out that I had an ability not to do that, and I was helping my other PhD students, and then they were all tutoring classes. Of course, we were TAs, we were tutorial assistants, along, and MA students trying to write better essays. And I was trying to teach myself that too. And then when I became an academic, we were all trying to get our books published and essays published, and I was helping them. And then this is the part that nobody knows. I think academics love puzzles. I think if you ask why does somebody become an academic, it's because they're always asking why, how, when did this happen? How is this put together? It's like putting together a combustion engine. You give a whole bunch of little pieces of nuts and bolts and screws to an engineer, and they can build like an engine. And you kind of throw some facts on the floor, and an academic goes, that's what I can do with this. And they put it all together. And in their spare time, my colleagues were writing, I was having babies, they were writing detective novels. Fiendishly complex, like just does your head in. They're so unbelievably convoluted.
I love it.
And it was generally to make a point of their research come clear. So everything would hinge on understanding, Wittgenstein's explanation of the theory of language or something like that.
I get it. Yeah, I get it. I think, you know what? And I think, honestly, I think that's a fabulous way to teach.
Yeah. You said that. That's what I ended up doing as a career when I moved to England, was doing exactly that. Because I came to exactly the same conclusion you did, Catherine. And I thought, this is a great way to learn, is by doing these really fun murder mysteries, which have got, crazy detectives, or, and there'd be a love interest in there, but sure. It explains something about our life, or explains physics, or it explains some principle of how computers work, upon which, is now an integral part of our lives, all embedded in a page turner.
That's a little bit like a Murdoch Mysteries, the CBC production of a detective show. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I just love it. I don't know how many seasons it's in, but it is set in early 1800s, and they bring in historical facts, historical figures, and they have the writers are constantly making reference to things in the future which haven't happened yet. But there was somebody was using something, and they made reference to, well, would you like a laptop table for your writing? And they said, no, I have a tablet. So it was just, it's plays on, but then they'll bring in, they've had, I don't know if they had Einstein on, but they've had different writers from as characters, as in the mystery of the murder, which also has love interest, which also has, it's incredible writing. And I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. It feels like you're getting, it's actually one of the reasons why women, predominantly women, but not just women, read historical novels. Men read kind of things about the Napoleonic War or, maritime adventures, Hornblower and all that, because they learn all these facts about warfare and how shipping worked and, the development of the British Empire. And it's all very embedded in reality. And, women learn about, things like the history of Henry VIII's wives. And it's, you feel like you're really, in the most delightful way possible, gaining an understanding of our own world.
Yeah, there's a lot of psychology behind it, a lot of, understanding the different, why do people do the thing? That's my thing. I'm always asking why? And I can't, it's a glitch in my programming because I can't seem to let it go. It doesn't, if I don't understand it, I want to try harder. It must be something that, I can't just accept that a person did that because of that. There's got to be more to it. And, to get that full understanding, that's what I love to read, is to get those subtleties and the juiciness of life and that kind of thing. And so when you're editing, that's what you're looking for, is that helping the academics speak English to the rest of us.
At that point, I was trying to help. The academics storytell, make it clearer. They kept having their equivalent of Sherlock Holmes stand up and pontificate. This is how it all works, people. And there'd be, a 5-page speech, and trying to turn it in, teach them with storytelling. And then when I left academia, and actually initially we moved to the Netherlands, my husband and I, because we didn't have a place in London at that point. And I started picking up work editing. And it was great when the kids were little, because I could work it around my children, and it didn't matter where I was in the world. It was, it was very, very flexible. And at that point, we weren't sure where we were going to settle. I was very happy in the Netherlands. And our second son was born in the Netherlands. And I said, if we want to stay here, I'm cool with that. I'm pretty open to going anywhere. I got an open mind now, and I can go anywhere. And so we actually talked about going to Australia or San Francisco. And actually we took the kids and we just went traveling to go where we wanted to settle. And we decided on London because it was kind of close to everywhere where our community was. The Netherlands, Canada, where he got work. It's not irrelevant. Let's talk real world here. The real world is also, can we find work? Where are the best chances for us to find work, paid work?
Yes.
So that was absolutely something we took into consideration.
And then so you decided you were editing, but then because when I look at right now today where you are with Claret Press.
Claret, yeah.
Claret Press. You, the books that you're publishing, and I really encourage people who are watching, go to the website, go and look and see at the authors and the books that are there available, because I turned everything that was so delicious, unique and boutique-y and into fast food. Everything's fast food, even books today, and literature, real, I remember saying to someone when I was writing my memoir, before it came out, and I had somebody editing for me, and I said, listen, I don't want this to just be me publishing a book. I want it to be juicy. I want it to be well written. I want it to be easy to read. I want it to be literature. I don't want it to just be a mass production like everybody else's. I want it to stand out.
Yeah.
So far, the reviews have been good. I don't want to read mass-produced. I want creativity. I love creativity. It's like comedy. I want clever comedy. I don't want toilet humor. I mean, I listened to that when my kids were growing up. Everything was funny. Every time anybody farted, it was funny. But, I'm an adult. I want clever humor. I want something that stimulates my mind and makes me think. And that's how I feel about books. And boy, when I'm looking, I haven't had a chance to fully delve into all the books you're offering there, but oh my goodness, they're juicy. They're juicy.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll tell you what happened.
Yes.
I was, the publishing industry is quite a tough industry, right? It's quite tough.
Yes.
And I was editing in and amongst other things. And I had one big contract with a big romance publisher. And I eventually stopped doing that because it started to rub me the wrong way. They really, I mean, you want to talk about something that is machine produced. And I felt that this was not, I didn't feel good about it, about my work. But I became aware that I was publishing books and some of them were really excellent. And for whatever reason, the author couldn't get them published. Mm-hmm. And other books would come across my desk and they were kind of like, drivel. And just so, and they were getting published and they were getting reviewed and, and I just thought, this is just not, it's just a terrible shame. And I thought, well, not your problem, Katie. You're an editor. You've got lots on your plate. You've got 3 young children now, and then 3, you've got things to do. Mm-hmm, so this is somebody else's problem to solve. It's not your problem to solve. Mm-hmm. And then I got diagnosed with cancer in my late 40s. When the kids were still quite young.
Oh dear!
I was very sick for a number of years, and it got a bit nip and tuck there. It was a bit touch and go. And when I came out, I kind of needed something to do that was positive because I was sick for several years.
Yeah, right.
To help these authors who could not get published, I started to help them get published. And so I set up Claret Press. And all my first authors, I said, look, I may not survive. So this is, it was almost like something that I just didn't even think about the business side of it. Why bother?
Yeah, I can see where, you just really wanted to offer something and because you didn't know if you were going to be here.
Exactly. So you set aside, I started kind of backwards. This is how, by the way, for those of you who are watching, this is not how you do things. In case anybody,
what not to do.
Yes, I'm like how not to do things, okay? Because ultimately you're running a business, and at the core of every business is money. And I did not bother even looking at it really for an absurdly long time. And that's how it kind of started. And then when I got better, I said to my husband, I don't quite know what to do here. This is, I could continue doing this, or we can just kind of go, well, that was a fun thing to do. And now let's walk away. And he said, just make yourself happy. He says, we will survive without your income. So as these few years have demonstrated.
Beautiful.
So just make yourself happy. And I thought, well, you know what? These books I think they are of value because they are, as we said earlier, exactly the kind of book, really fun reads that grapple with the issues of the day.
They do. And just going through the titles and the explanations and some reviews and into things. And one you have on your YouTube channel, there's a woman reading it. I think it's The Elephant.
Oh, yes, Sylvia Vera. You know what? I'm doing a memoir right now because she was in one of the first interracial marriages in the British Midlands and was spat upon in the street and called a traitor to her race.
Oh, and, wow.
When she gave birth, it hit the newspaper because she gave birth to a mixed race baby.
Wow, I'd love to read that. Yeah, that sounds.
So she's just written a book about, what it's like to be a working class girl. Growing up, her father was a mechanic. Growing up in the post-war generation, because she's obviously in her 70s now. So it's a mixture. This kind of because how England's very class stratified. Mm-hmm. So she is working class, very married to a man of color, and she set up her own businesses. So she's trying to be a female entrepreneur in a man's business world. Mm-hmm. So she kind of lived this tumultuous change that is post-war Britain, with all the influx of immigrants from the previous colonies, and the kind of the rise of the women's movement, and, social mobility being an issue. And she's kind of quite accidentally really kind of ridden that.
Wow.
So
that would be really inspiring. And I mean, I think that's the kind of story that, for young women is to, I don't like to be too harsh on, because this is what it is. We're living in this world we're living in now, but I'm aware of what we're calling influencers today. And really, to me, the word is marketer. It's not influencer. They're for the most part. There are some people who may be influencers in a intellectual or a morality or a how to live, better way. There are people doing that. But what I'm seeing that are really, I mean, I don't even, I won't say it, but there are people who are...
Go on.
I was going to say, really look at the Kardashians. That's the thing and I have never watched their show, but I've seen all their advertisements, and because you can't watch anything on TV without seeing an advertisement or social media, about them. And it is a very, very shallow lifestyle. There is nothing in it except about the physical body, and
it's dangerous.
Yeah, and it's just so, and I mean, you talk about objectification and for young women growing up, like I didn't have that kind of influence. I had the mothers that I babysat for, the women I saw working in the stores, my own mother, the teachers. Those were women that I had, and actually in my world, Gloria Steinem's was a bad word, so I didn't even have that. I couldn't really, because it was, so I had to learn that stuff as I got older. But for influence, I mean, it's books like the ones you're producing, that you're publishing, that are meat. I mean, they are real meat and potatoes for people to really, what is life about? What is a journey of hardship? It's not about not having your false eyelashes. It's for sure. It's really where for love, you end up marrying someone who's outside of what is considered acceptable, and all of the challenges that go with that. I'm not saying you have to go out and seek it, but I'm saying, where's that inspiration? Like I remember being inspired by Grapes of Wrath when I was a kid. I mean, I don't know if it was grade 7 or 8 that we read it in school.
That's young.
Yeah, it was. And it was, and there were, scenes in it that it was kind of like, but I think that's why it hit me so hard, was that, and my feeling that it called social justice and fairness in the world, and what life is really all about. Like it really shaped a lot of my ideas. It stuck with me. But that's what I think books.
Yes, I think books can be very inspirational, and they can show you another way of living. And I think it's especially important for. I mean, look, I don't even watch TV, okay, because I have. You kind of how you turn your hobby into a job, and then it becomes like a punishment.
Yeah,
I have such an almighty stack of books that I have to get through. It's like I sit there in the evening and go flip, trying to read through all these books, right? And people go, "You mean you haven't read that?" But it won the Man Booker Prize, and I think I haven't got time to read the Man Booker Prize winner. It's like everybody. I'm so surprised you haven't read it, Kate. It's like, no, I haven't read it. It's like one of the drawbacks of my job is that people think. I mean, I read all the time.
Yeah,
and you just can't keep up with the books. But the point being, I don't watch TV. I have never watched a Kardashian. I know about the Kardashians.
Yes,
and you get the feeling of people who are judged by that they judge themselves and the people by the content of their purses. rather than the content of the characters.
Yes, absolutely. And the problem is it's fine if those people want to live that way. I have no judgment about them at all. But I do have a problem when it's put out as if
Yeah,
it's
this is what
something
we
we should,
aspire.
yes, we should aspire to. This is, you need to have all cosmetic surgery or buy this, whatever. It isn't, it isn't real. And I think the reason it's so harsh to me right now is we are at a time on the planet where we are really looking at sustainability. How can we live as human beings on this planet in harmony with Mother Earth? And it certainly isn't by being consume, and the values, they're out of sync with a lot of our young people. A lot of our young people are concerned about the environment, are concerned about, they're, and it's not just out of fear. I don't think. I think a lot of them, it's pure love. They love this planet. They came here to enjoy this beautiful, rich, deep soil and the beautiful trees, and to know, like, I want to be part of this growth. Not, I just want to consume the next latest fad. And that's where I think books they can teach by entertaining, like you were talking about earlier. And that's why
You
I mean,
engage. And you know what? I think, when you talk about your own memoir, that you didn't want it to look like it was machine produced. I think one thing that's really undervalued in writing is authenticity. And it's difficult to marry creativity with authenticity, because at the same time, your authentic life is you get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, and you have your coffee, and then you, like, it's not terrifically interesting. Yeah. So you have to take that creative wellspring and turn that into a murder mystery, a love story, something like that, so that you can share it with the rest of the world, and they're going to want to hear it. Because I think we're hardwired for storytelling.
I do too. And that's why I think a lot of us are, talking about depression and the rise of, people feeling so alone and whatever. We're not connecting. You cannot connect in a few minutes on social media. You're not really. And that's why when they always share this thing and encourage other people to share, to show that somebody is always listening. This is what they say. They post this and say, so that people know they're not alone and somebody is always here. And I'm thinking, to me, that is really irresponsible. I'm not always here. I don't have, my phone is so freaking old. It's not even, I use it in emergencies. I am not on my computer on social media 24/7. I am not going to be the one. And I would not say that to people. Yes, the way you can find, you're not alone is create community off. Because I can't tell when I'm reading someone's text. How often do arguments happen on social media because people can't get the tone? This person being sarcastic, this person's trying to be funny, this person's, you don't get it. But when you're talking to someone in person, you pick up the vibes, you see their facial expressions, you get that connection. And that's what I get in a good book, is where the author is telling me, showing me the expression, the body language, all that kind of thing. And to me, that's what, if I was really lonely, I would pick up a book. Not a academic book, but a story. I would pick up a story.
I agree. It's one of the reasons why I decided, I did think about publishing like nonfiction books. And I love nonfiction too, by the way. I love learning, obviously. And I love how they explain the world to me. So I love nonfiction. In fact, the one book on my desk happens to be by Václav Havel, the former president of the Czech Republic and Czechoslovakia, about what it's like to live under an authoritarian regime. It's nonfiction. That's when I'm on my lunch break when I'm reading. So I do love nonfiction. Yeah. But I think that we have the capacity to learn through storytelling and feel and engage with our brain and our heart and the rhythm of the ages through storytelling. And so the information sticks somehow because you read with all parts of your body. When you read something like this, which is bloody brilliant, by the way, I highly recommend it. I didn't obviously publish it since it's been in print since the 1970s. So that, but it's absolutely brilliant, but you're only reading with your brain.
Yes.
And when you read storytelling, you read with your whole body, and the act of reading then becomes a creative act in itself. The reader engages creatively because the whole being is involved with the act of reading.
Yeah.
You're watching and it's all in your head and you're feeling it inside your heart. It's a fantastic experience. What a gift reading
It really is, isn't it? It is. It's very much like dreaming, or because you're experiencing. How many times, you're heavily into your book, you're there, and somebody comes into the room and wants your attention, and you close the book and have to think for a second to be present, not with, and I don't know how many times, that's happened for me, or that I've felt an emotion, a sadness, something happened to my character. And I'm really thinking about that for a couple of days, like really, exactly. And then, having to put the book down and give it a break and process how I feel about this, and then to go back to it, or, hold off the last chapter because you don't want it to end, because those are real experiences and we learn from them. There's so many books and I'm not good with names. Like once I read a book, it's like, it's gone. I just, and there's a few that stand out in my mind that will refer it, or it'll come up if someone's talking about something. But I just think that where your, journey took you from, totally teaching in the university to publishing and giving voice to these amazing authors who probably, you're right, they wouldn't have, it takes years to get a mainstream publisher unless you're a big name that they know you're going to sell a lot of books. But today it's easier to get published, but I'm not sure, because of self-publishing and so forth, but I'm not sure that the message that the publishing world has been giving to self-publishing is always particularly helpful. Like, I'd love it if they just raised their standard a little bit, helped people to say, it's not good enough to throw something that hasn't been edited out there. And, I remember reading a book that was self-published, and, they wanted me to review it. I read it, and the substance of it was good. It's just that the pages weren't in proper order. I'm reading and then I'm into another page, and it wasn't. Paragraphs weren't in proper order. There was words. It was very, very poorly edited. And I tried to share that, like I said, I think your book would be really good if you would get it edited. You would find that it would be, and they didn't appreciate my advice at all. And I just thought and of course, are we surprised? I
still edit for money to subsidize Claret Press, because Claret Press doesn't break even. So I still sell my editing skills to.
Very good then. Because for all you self-publishers, get an editor. Now you know where you can.
Over. But I will say that one of the things I've had to learn, because I tend to be quite direct and frank and very upfront, one of the things I've had to learn is how to feel out how much of a feedback they genuinely want. Because sometimes people give me things and tell me they want it edited, and they don't want it edited. They want to hear that they're fucking Shakespeare.
Yes, that's right.
And they're paid.
That's what I want to hear all the time. That's all I want to hear, Katie.
But you don't know that, right? Because they won't say that to you up front. Like they'll do the eye lock. They go, oh no, I want you to tell me because I want this to be good. And you think, okay. So then you tell them what's wrong with it, and they're like outraged. So it's very tricky when you're a paid editor and in some ways that's one of the attractions of working for a big publishing house. If you're hired, when I was a romance editor, you are hired to be as brutal as possible, to pull this drivel up to something that is readable, but to please do it in the speed of light, because really nobody's that fussed, and you're allowed to be quite brutal. Yeah, and equally, with Claret Press, because I cover all the costs, of course, because I'm the publisher, so I cover all the costs of the editing, the book design, the illustrations, the uploads. I print up all the copies in advance, and they sit in a warehouse and all that. I kind of get to say, this is it gives you a little bit of room to maneuver, but even still, you have to be sensitive to what people want to hear, or else it also just backfires. People go, well, screw you, I don't want you to publish my book anyways because you don't understand what I'm trying to say. And I think, look, could you just change the character?
I know it is hard, and I totally get that, and I'm sure. But I know that a lot of times people are not like me, and they just actually enjoy the book, and they're not
fussed.
They're not, and they see, okay, there was a mistake, and they flip over. And I do that too. And because I know people are human, and there can be typos and stuff, but I'm talking, you need an editor too. You can't know your own work. You can't know if your story it's like comedians. They write their stuff, they do their stand-up comic, and if it flops, then they know it was, nobody laughs. They don't do it again the next night and say, I know this is good.
Yeah. Well, it's Stephen King who said, to write is human, to edit is divine.
I think that's probably true. I
like that, because it kind of says, I don't think he meant get an editor. He meant kind of rewrite and rewrite and rewrite, because things become clearer as you do it. I think that, kind of belong into a writing circle. If you've got a good one, if it can be extremely helpful. You don't just catch each other's typos, you end up talking about. So when you have a character says this, are you meaning that, or do you mean that? I think it's dragging here at chapter 4, and you think, it doesn't drag for me. I think it's really interesting. And they go, no, it isn't.
No, it's not at all.
Okay. And then, you have to hear what people say to you.
Yeah.
But if you can do that, then writing circles can be very helpful.
Yeah.
And you can skip people like me.
Well, yeah. And that's the thing, is to know that they can go to your website, Claret Press, and check out the authors that are there. Also check out if they need an editor, that you're offering those services, and connect with you on that. And read the books that Claret Publishing is producing, because Jeepers Creepers, these are amazing. I could hardly hold back. I was like, oh my God, like I have so many books to read, but there's more, and so I would like to, I think, we're going to run out of time here, and I want to make sure that I have really given you the opportunity to share, like, what message would you have for women who have a dream, who want to be an entrepreneur, who want to write their story or get published, or, what would, if I,
Wow, those are a couple of really big questions. I think if you wanted to be an entrepreneur, okay, you know what I'd say? First of all, listen to your gut. Try to set aside, if this is possible, all those other voices in your head saying, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this. Because you can learn. We can all learn. Okay. Yeah. So try to just say what feels right. And then trust yourself, and trust yourself to say, I can learn this. I have friends that can help me with this. So I'm not alone. Even if you're a writer, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're following a dream, you have a community there. to call on. And I've been very fortunate that my community here in London is hugely supportive of me. And my husband and my kids are very supportive of what I do. I think all of us, there are people out there who want to help us. Ask for help. I do. So I'd say listen to yourself, believe in yourself, and then figure it out. If you know what I mean. Like, I'm not saying this is easy, okay? I'm not gilding the lily here. I'm not saying this is, easy peasy lemon squeezy. I am not saying that. You do have to figure it out. It is confusing. It can be hard and frustrating, but it's doable. Yeah. It's all doable.
You have shown us, I mean, what I hear in your story is flexibility, that you learned to be flexible, to go with it.
You walk through the open doors, as we said earlier to each other. It just felt, there it is. Here's the possibility. Let's make it happen. Why not? And you know what the worst case scenario? Let's just talk about the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is, I'd say to my authors, you guys, I'm on year 6. I have worked the hours. I've put 40 to 60 hours in every week. I have tried my level best. I am now shutting up shop and leaving. And thank you so much to all of you for all your support and love, but I can't do this anymore. And you know what people say? Thank you so much, Katie, for publishing my book. Good luck to you in your next adventure. That's the worst case scenario. When that's the worst case scenario, that's the failure, we're fine. Like, honestly. Yeah, like we permit yourself to fail and do badly. Like, I see this as a kind of, you get those bar graphs and you have kind of things at different heights along various, you've got the kind of the X axis here and the Y axis there. And then you've got kind of bars going up at different lengths. Yeah. Like, some are really hot. Like, I'm really good at editing. Like, I've been doing it for 20 years now. I'm really good at it, and I'm really, really bad at marketing. So you get bars at different heights.
And that's where you ask for help, right? And I think for women, because this is where, that whole thing, you can have it all. I think we bought into, we can do it all, and that we have to do it all. And so that's where, I know that's been my biggest thing, is I want to do something. And instead of looking around for, I wonder who could help me with that. Like, I see men doing that. I see that as part of their, I don't know, way they were raised, the team thing. Whereas women, we get isolated so much, especially if we're raising children, we're at home with kids by ourselves, or that kind of thing. And if you're at home with the kids by yourself, you generally don't phone the neighbor and say, God, I don't know what to do here. Can you come over and change this diaper? You don't do it. You just suck it up and do it, right? Because, that's how it is. But you can ask for help. And the difference is, for me, is to be able to ask people that are not going to tell you what to do, but will offer suggestions and not be, I think that's where we as women, we sometimes take that. If somebody says, you say, I don't know what to do, someone's going to tell you what to do. Don't say you don't know what to do. Say, I'm looking at options here. Can you offer me something? Like, just don't ask them to, don't admit, I don't know what to do. Tell me what to do is just right around the corner from that. And you don't want that.
Yeah, generally. That's a very good point. I'll tell you what I have found to be useful. I try to get it in one kind of 8.5 by 11, as you say in Canada, A4, as you'd say in England, one piece of paper. This is what I'm doing. So I reduce my company down to, 3, 4, 5 lines. This is the problem I'm encountering. Let's say it's an accounting system, because I've recently just got on top of that, or a distribution system. This is the advantages of my distribution system. Here are the disadvantages. And then you've got about half the page left, and you come to a table. Option number 1, option number 2, option number 3. And you slide this piece of paper in front of people's faces. You say, I'm really happy to answer questions, but which way do you think I ought to go in? And then people ask you very different questions. that you just did not predict.
Hey, that's really cool.
And you end up, as a result, discussing some other aspect of your business, which you didn't think was real. And then you kind of look at me and go, that was an interesting conversation. Unexpected. And you end up through this very unpredictable way, groping your way towards a path to go forward.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. That's genius.
Organized in your head. You have to be organized in your head, but that's a good thing. You know, I did that in January, February. And it took me, I would say, about a month to get it down to one page. And in the process of then talking to several people about it, things became so much clearer.
Wow.
And then someone just said to me, Katie, the reality is if you're going to have to make money, you're going to have to rent out rooms in your house. And I thought, well, that's a good point too. I hadn't thought about that. Like, I'm going to have to do that. You know, so
well, options and things, people brainstorm. And I think that's something that people do love to brainstorm with. Like they do love to offer you, what about this or what about that? And it's fun. And I think it's easier for people to do that for someone else than for themselves. Like I know I can, if you ask me, you know, what you should do or what ideas are on the table, I start throwing the ideas out. But whereas I can't seem to do that for myself, right? That's why we need each other. That's why we need community, connection, and books. Especially good books, especially books that Katie's publishing. Gosh, I've enjoyed this so much, Katie. We could talk for hours, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And it's you know what's really nice, Catherine, is seeing someone on this journey of life in the way we both are, and coming out a very different journey that you've been on, and the wisdom that you have brought as a result of your journey, as a result of you talking to people and listening. You know, because of all your listening you're doing with other people and the way you engage with other people, you've learned so much and you're sharing it with others. And it's really quite a beautiful thing to be a part of. And thank you so much for letting me be a part of that. Oh,
I appreciate it. You can't even imagine. And I'm sure, you know, I think I need to have you back again because we've only really touched the surface and you are really doing great things. So yeah. Love to come back. And until the next time then. Yes. Yeah. Until the next time. Take care, everyone. Thank you, you too. Bye-bye. All right. Wasn't that fun? I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I'm very grateful to my guest, Katie Isbester, for joining me, and I know I'm going to have her back for sure. We have so much more to talk about. And for the rest of you, until next time, take care. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for subscribing or following, liking, and sharing the podcast. It helps me grow this channel and hopefully reaches more people with an empowering message. It's always nice to know there is wisdom out there and you can tap into it. Visit the website for more information on how to be a guest, see the guest list and future shows and topics. And while you're there, I invite you to browse my acrylic art pieces on canvas and wood. They make an amazing home decor, high vibe art. And you'll also find the link to my storefront for luxurious women's fashions and home decor, created and designed by me with my art and manufactured in Montreal, Canada by Le Galeriste. And it is really amazing to have found them. They are environmentally conscious. They use a special dye that doesn't fade, and it's humanely manufactured. It is an awesome time to be on the planet and have these choices. So I invite you to explore and see if there is something there for you. Until next time, take care.